Hello everyone, welcome back to English One. I'm Sophie Lee and I'm the instructor today. Reading novels is a great way to get to learn about the English culture. We have the pleasure to invite Professor Jonathan Klassen to be with us today. Professor Klassen is one of the experts in children's literature. Jonathan and I knew each other back a long way. Jonathan, please say hello and introduce yourself a bit to the audience.
Yes, hi, I'm Jonathan Klassen and an English professor at Suzhou University. I've found that in my 20 years of teaching in English in Taiwan, that those English learners who develop an interest in reading literature, even children's literature, in English, these students often develop the highest levels of English proficiency.
Jonathan 老师呢，在东吴大学任教20年，在推广儿童文学教学上贡献很多。他也是东吴大学的优良教授。文学中智慧和句子的多样和多元性，帮助语言学习者增进他们的语言能力。换句话说，读得越多，就越能够帮助语感。今天的单元刚好是在讨论一位英国的湖区作家，我们参考 Arthur Ransom 学习俄文的经验，或许也会给同学一个学习不同语言的依据。首先呢，我们来介绍 Arthur Ransom 这个作家。Please give us a brief introduction to Arthur Ransom.
Yes, Arthur Ransom is regarded as one of the most important British writers of children's literature. He inherited his father's love of the Lake District and of fishing. He read voraciously and contributed to publications.
Arthur Ransom 被认为是英国儿童文学最重要的作家之一。他继承了父亲对湖区和捕鱼的热爱，他阅读狂热，贡献了很多的著作。Lake District 是英国的湖区，最为人所熟知的湖区作家就是写 Peter Rabbit 的这个 Beatrix Potter。英国的湖区呢，在 Kent 附近哈，风景非常的美。Professor Klassen, please read the first paragraph for us.
In 1913, Arthur Ransom fled to Russia, intending to learn the language and write their fairy stories in English, which he did in Old Peter's Russian Tales, a collection of 21 folk tales from Russia. After the outbreak of World War I, in 1914, he became a foreign correspondent for the Daily News. But in fleeing domestic troubles, he got caught in even greater ones. Circumstances caused him to stand in as a reporter of the Russian Revolution, and journalism became his way of life. When he finally left Russia, he brought Trotsky's secretary with him as his wife, and they settled in the English Lake District. His career in journalism required him to visit Egypt and China.
Thank you, Jonathan. Outbreak 这个就是名词，是爆发或是疫情大流行的意思哦。这个在谈到课文之前呢，我们来先聊聊这个电影呢，《Outbreak》那就是《危机总动员》是在1995年上映的一部美国的灾难片，由这个Dustin Hoffman 还有 Morgan Freeman 这两位大演员来主演的哈。这影片呢讲述的是来自于非洲那个沙伊的一种致命性的病毒 Ebola， 在美国的一个小镇上爆发，然后引起了大量的平民死亡的一个故事。OK， 动词呢我们会用 to break out。这一段呢是在讲 Arthur Ransom 在1913年逃到苏联，因为是1913年，我们用过去式。和中文不一样哦，英文的动词时态很重要，中文用给了、去过等等，可以看出是过去式，但是英文不同，英文必须在动词智慧中加上 ed 或是去 y 加 ied， 并用时间 yesterday、last week 或是 2 years ago 来表示过去式。这一课我们会讨论到不规则的动词，有些不规则的动词有2种过去式和2种过去分词的写法。When the First World War broke out, he became war correspondent in Russia for the Daily News, for the Manchester Guardian. In 1913, Arthur Ransom fled to Russia, intending to learn the language and write their fairy stories in English, which he did in Old Peter's Russian Tales》。第一次世界大战爆发后，他替曼彻斯的这个《Guardian》这个报社呢来工作，他成为每日新闻的外派记者。在1913年 ，Arthur Ransom 逃到俄罗斯，打算学俄文，并用英文写苏联的童话故事。而他也真的这么写了一本老 Peter 的俄罗斯故事。这本书呢，收集了来自俄罗斯的21个民间故事 ，which he did in Old Peter's Russian Tales，which 是限定的关系代名词的用法 ，which he did， 而他也真的写了苏联的童话故事。在 Old Peter's Russian Tale 一书中呢，他收集了有21个俄罗斯的民间故事。Jonathan, could you please explain the word folk tales for us?
Sure, yeah. Folk tales are stories of the folk, or the common people. They are old stories that developed by the lowest people in societies, expressing their hopes, fears, wishes, and desires. They say a lot about the societies they come from. And as oral stories, they truly do belong to the people. Every teller adapts the story to the audience at hand. A couple hundred years ago, though, people started to write the stories down to try to preserve them and study them, in part to better understand the cultures that produced them. Nowadays, we sometimes refer to these written versions as fairy tales.
Thank you, Jonathan. 民间故事呢，是民间故事或是平民百姓的一些故事，他们是老故事，由社会最底层的人写出来的故事。他那些故事呢，都表达了他们的希望、恐惧、愿望还有欲望。这些故事呢，说了很多关于他们家乡的故事，借由口语相传，留下他们真实的人生。说故事的人呢，还将故事会改写哦。那可以适应不同的听众。几百年前呢，人们开始写下故事，试着去保护他们，而且会进行一些部分故事的一些考究，以便呢更了解故事背景的文化。如今呢，我们在说童话故事的时候，还可以回溯到故事之前的那些书面的版本。Thank you, Jonathan. Right, the paragraph mentioned Old Peter's Russian Tales. What is Old Peter's Russian Tales, Jonathan?
It's a collection of 21 folk tales from Russia. Remember, Arthur Ransom fled to Russia with an intention to learn the language and write their fairy stories in English. So after the outbreak of World War in 1914, he became a foreign correspondent for the Daily News. But in fleeing domestic troubles, he got caught in even greater ones.
Thank you. 1914年世界大战爆发后，Arthur Ransom 呢成为每日新闻的外派记者，但是在逃离国内的这个麻烦的时候呢，他陷入了一个更大的麻烦。Jonathan, please explain the word outbreak and foreign correspondence for us.
Outbreak. An outbreak is when something big and usually bad begins to happen or breaks out. We could talk about the coronavirus outbreak that began at the beginning of the year and that much of the world is still dealing with now. Foreign correspondent. A foreign correspondent is simply a reporter, correspondent, who works in another country.
Yes, Jonathan, please also explain the sentence, but in fleeing domestic troubles, he got caught in even greater ones.
But in fleeing domestic troubles, he got caught in even greater ones. Domestic refers to something happening in your own country. So this sentence tells us that when Arthur Ransom tried to run away from troubles in his home country of England, he ended up getting involved in even bigger trouble in Russia.
Thank you, Jonathan. Get caught 的用法哦，就是被逮到了、被抓到的意思。Jonathan, could you please explain the following two sentences?
He got caught off guard. If you are on guard, or on your guard, that means you are paying attention. If you are caught off guard, that means you are surprised by something because you weren't paying attention. Caught cheating on the exam, the student couldn't help crying. In this sentence, it sounds like the student was embarrassed or upset because the teacher found out she was cheating. This probably means she got a 0 on the test and failed the class.
OK， 我们来补充以下的内容。Professor Jonathan, please read and explain the following sentence.
Later, he observed the Russian Revolution. This was the period when his two books, 6 Weeks in Russia in 1919 and The Crisis in Russia, were written. This is because Arthur Ransome was working as a foreign correspondent in Russia, telling the news of what was happening there to his audience in England. Working as a foreign reporter allowed him to see firsthand what was happening there.
是的，之后呢，这个 Arthur Ransome 见证了俄国的大革命。Observe 这个单字呢，在这里有 witness 的意思。我们在第10个单元里面学过 ，observe 这个字有观察或是遵守的意思。例如 ，to observe the university's regulations， 遵守大学的规定。Observer 也有当注意或是留意、记得的意思。例如 ，to observe someone's birthday， 记得某人的生日。During that period of time, Arthur Ransome wrote 2 books, 6 Weeks in Russia in 1919 and The Crisis in Russia. 就在这个期间呢，他写了1919年在苏联的6周和苏联危机这2本书。Professor Klassen, please explain the following sentence for us.
Circumstances caused him to stand in as a reporter of the Russian Revolution, and journalism became his way of life.
Jonathan, please explain the sentence.
So this sentence tells us that his experience as a foreign correspondent telling Brits about the Russian Revolution is what led to Ransome becoming a lifelong journalist or reporter.
Circumstances 是情况、情境的意思。Something becomes someone's life, meaning something is so interesting that someone is devoted his passion to doing it. To go through Ransome's early career, first, he worked as a literary critic. Next, he made an early attempt to write a children's book. After this, he traveled extensively for his work as a journalist. At this time, he was formulating an ambition to combine selling with writing. 要了解 Ransome 的早期生活，我们必须知道，在 Ransome 早期的书评生涯，他已经试着写童书。那之后呢，他在当记者的生涯当中呢，他又因为工作的关系需要常常旅行，也就是在这段期间，他酝酿着一个野心，要写有关航海的故事。那第2段我们要谈谈 Ransome 的写作和他的书中的人物。Professor Klassen, please read the paragraph for us.
In 1929, he quit his paid job with the Manchester Guardian and set about writing a children's book. He had studied literature and various authors. His English was excellent, and journalism had taught him not to waste words. In his books, he used the names and the characteristics of a friend's children and involved them in adventures drawn from his own and his friends' lives. The setting was a geographically rearranged but recognizable lake district, populated by folks he had known there as a boy.
OK， 在1929年，他辞去了这个曼彻斯特卫报的有薪工作 （paid job）。OK，how to quit one's job and to get sacked, to get fired 或 to get laid off 不一样。To quit 是自己辞职的 ，to get sacked。To get fired, to get laid off 是被请辞的，是被资遣的意思。好，跟 pay 有关的几个说法呢，我们说 paid leave 代职休假 ，payroll 是一个薪水部还有发薪的这个名单或是薪水的总额。名词的复数呢是 payrolls。OK，in 1929 he quit his paid job with the Manchester Guardians and set about writing a children's book. To set about 的意思就是 to start doing something. 他开始着手编写儿童的读物，研读文学和不同的作家作品。他的英文非常的精准，因为新闻写作的经验教会了他不会浪费文字 ，not to waste words. In his book, he used the names and the characteristics of a friend's children and involved them in adventures drawn from his own and his friend's life. 在他的书里面哦，他使用了他朋友的孩子们的名字跟他们的很多的特征，而且呢，他让那些孩子呢参加了自己跟朋友生活中的冒险。Jonathan, please explain the sentence.
In his books, he used the names and the characteristics of a friend's children and involved them in adventures which are drawn from his own and his friends' lives. This tells us about Arthur Ransom's inspiration. He used real children that he knew as models for the characters he wrote about.
这告诉我们呢 ，Arthur Ransom 的灵感是来自于他自己和他的朋友的孩子。哦，这些孩子们呢，也是他的小说中人物的写照。The setting was a geographically rearranged but recognizable lake district, populated by folks he had known there as a boy. 这个故事的背景呢，虽然重新安排过了，但是还可以辨识出是湖区 Lake District。那里呢，有他从小就认识的人事物。Jonathan, please explain these words: recognizable and populated.
Recognizable. Okay. The Taipei 101 building is an instantly recognizable landmark.
可辨识的、可辨别的。台北101大楼呢，是可以立即辨识的一个地标。
Populate.
Populated 是形容词的意思。它是人口密集的。
Wild animals are seldom seen in populated areas.
在人口密集的地区，很少见到野生动物。Jonathan, please read the third paragraph for us.
The books in the Swallows and Amazons series became the most sought-after Christmas books. The subject matter of these books did not have to mirror exactly the reader's lives, but it may provide them with ideas about what other patterns of life are possible. A literary work which can inspire readers' sympathetic interest and curiosity is more likely to have a lasting impact. For example, Ransom's subject matter is about the adventure of sailing. For people who do not have a chance to sail, Ransom's literary works help them live an imaginary life. A good children's book should cater for all children who indulge in stories about, for example, the world of sailing, but have not been so fortunate as to have a boat.
Okay, thank you. The book 是同位语用来加强补充说明 the book， 说的是 Amazon。这本书呢，变成了大家圣诞节最想买来送人的书。我们请 Jonathan 老师呢，帮我们解释这个句子Professor Jonathan, please explain this sentence.
The subject matter of books do not have to mirror exactly the reader's life, but may provide them with ideas about what other patterns of life are possible.
Thank you. 记得我们说过英文文法剥洋葱的原理只要是长句子，我们都可以用这个方式来分析这个句型。The subject matter of books， 这是主词，动词就是 do not have to mirror exactly the reader's life。Exactly the reader's life 呢是受词好，主词、动词、受词，然后我们用一个连接词 but 来连接这两个动词。好。May provide them with ideas about what other patterns of life are possible. 这个 may provide 是动词，是第二个动词。书籍的主题不必完全反映读者的生活，但可以为他们提供有关其他可能的生活模式和想法。A literary work which can inspire readers' sympathetic interest and curiosity. Literary work 是主词，动词在后面的 is more likely to have lasting impact. Lasting impact 是持久的影响。这里的 is 呢是它的动词。这句话的意思呢，就是说能够激发读者同情和好奇心的文学作品，可能有更持久的影响力。Professor Jonathan, please explain the following passage for us.
For example, Ransom's subject matter is about the adventure of sailing. For people who do not have a chance to sail, Ransom's literary works help them to live an imaginary life. A good children's book should cater for all children who indulge in stories about the world of sailing, but have not been so fortunate as to have a boat. Now, this doesn't mean that every book needs to cater for or excite every reader the same way. Some readers will love learning about sailing. Others may be more interested in other kinds of stories. But good stories provide details that truly help readers imagine and understand lives that they may never live themselves.
Thanks, Jonathan. 这句话的意思是说 Ransom 的主题呢是关于航行的冒险。对于没有机会航行的人 ，Ransom 的文学作品可以帮助他们过一种想象的生活。一本优良的童书呢，应该适合所有沉迷在帆船世界的故事，但是却还没有幸运到可以拥有一艘船的这些孩子们来读哈。接下来我们来看看第4段。Jonathan, please read the last paragraph for us.
For many people in England, including Ransom, the idea of being on holiday was bound up with the idea of being uncomfortable, of becoming a raggle-taggle gypsy. That, for most people, seems a strange and alien concept, but exploring the islands, making holidays of camping and sailing, readers broaden their horizons because they learn about other children's life experiences. They experience the life of savages, charcoal burners, imaginary pirates, and sailors, and compare their lives to those of the children in England. Reading children's literature takes readers to a world beyond their imagination.
Thank you. 对于包括 Ransom 在内的许多1930年代的英国人来说呢，度假的想法和不舒服的想法是连接在一起的。比如说，变成衣衫褴褛、摇摆不定的吉普赛人。And yes, for many people in England, especially in 1930s, the idea of being on holidays was bound up with the idea of being uncomfortable. Imagine themselves being raggle-taggle gypsies. To many people, this kind of holiday making seems a strange and alien concept. 对于大多数的人来说，这样的度假似乎是一个陌生又奇怪的概念。透过探索这个岛屿休假、露营还有航行，读者可以拓宽他们的视野，因为他们学习到其他孩子的生活方式。生活经验，他们体验到原始的生活，烧木炭工人的生活，还有虚构的海盗和水手的生活，并将这样子的生活和英国的儿童的生活做比较。阅读文学将读者带入了一个超乎他们想象力的世界，charcoal burners, pirates and sailors，OK？同学们也可以想象他们所过的生活，然后也想想看你们现在正在过的生活。Okay, now let's take a look at some vocabulary. Professor Claassen, please read the words and example sentences for us.
Number 1, flee.
Flee 呢是动词，是逃跑的意思。
It is likely that the fugitives have fled the country by now.
很有可能这些逃犯现在已经逃到国外了。
Number 2, folktale.
名词是民间故事、传说。
Many fascinating folktales appeal to readers.
许多耐人寻味的民间故事吸引了读者。
Number 3, correspondent.
战地记者是名词。
Our foreign correspondent filed this report earlier this morning.
我们的外国记者今天早些时候呢提交了这份报告。
Number 4, circumstance.
名词，环境、情况的意思。
Under no circumstances should you approach the suspicious man.
在任何情况下都不应该接近那个可疑的人。
Number 5, recognizable.
形容词，可辨识的。
The Taipei 101 building is an instantly recognizable landmark.
台北101大楼是立即可辨别的地标。
Number 6, populated.
Populated 呢是形容词，人口密集的。
Wild animals are seldom seen in populated areas.
在人口密集的地区，很少见到野生动物。
Number 7, mirror.
名词是镜子的意思，它当动词呢是反应。
A large mirror in a room can create the illusion of space.
房间内的大镜子可以营造出空间的错觉。
Her on-screen romances seem to mirror her experiences in her private life.
她在荧幕上的恋情似乎反映了她在私人生活中的经验。
The subject matter of books do not have to mirror exactly the reader's lives, but may provide them with ideas about what other patterns of life are possible.
书籍的主题不必完全反映读者的生活，但可以为他们提供关于其他可能的生活模式的想法。
Number 8, sympathetic.
形容词有同情心的。
She is sympathetic over what has happened.
她对所发生的事感到同情。
Number 9, lasting.
lasting 呢是形容词，持久的、耐久的、持续的。
His far-reaching vision had a lasting impact on the world economy.
他的远见卓识对全球经济有持久的影响。
Number 10, cater.
cater 是动词，外汇的意思。
Delegates have meals catered by the hotel while the conference is underway.
会议期间，代表们在酒店用餐。
Number 11, indulge.
indulge 呢是动词，沉迷、满足，让自己高兴一下。
Once in a while, she indulged in a trip of shopping for luxury goods.
偶尔呢，他会沉迷在购物，然后买一些奢侈品。
Number 12, fortunate.
是形容词，幸运的或是侥幸的。
Let us pray for those who are not so fortunate as ourselves.
让我们为那些不像我们这么幸运的人祈祷。
Number 13, gypsy.
名词，吉普赛人。
For most people, the idea of becoming a raggle-taggle gypsy seems a strange concept.
对于大多数人来说，想变成邋遢不修边幅的吉普赛人，似乎是一个陌生的概念。
Number 14, charcoal.
名词，是木炭的意思。
The artist sketched the outlines in charcoal on the canvas.
这位艺术家在布上用炭笔勾勒出轮廓。
Number 15, imaginary.
imaginary 呢是形容词，想象中的、虚构的。
J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings is a story set in an imaginary world.
魔戒这本书的故事呢，是建立在一个虚构的世界里。今天非常感谢Professor Jonathan Claassen 帮我们主讲第14个单元，我们下次见。Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Claassen. Thank you.